everybody, I'm back. If you didn't catch the last video, this is part 2 of a series dedicated to a conversation that Marty Worm and Alan over at Let's Talk Metal and Myke had about albums from their favorite albums, essentially from 2010 until 2020. And I just made a quick sort of list over the weekend. I had such a good time watching the video that I thought I'd give it a shot and do sort of a response video, if you will, to their sort of conversation. They had a 2-hour conversation, and I was so inspired. Here I am making a video. So part 1, I did 5, or technically 6 albums, I should say. 1 that we're listening to in the background, and then I grabbed 5 others to talk about. So, breaking the rules, but it's my show. Okay. So, speaking of which, this is the second time I've played this in the background. 2012, Elysian Blaze, Blood Geometry. There's no way I could avoid. I did not want to talk about records that I had previously displayed on the show, but there's no way for me to avoid talking about this record. Like I previously mentioned, I was living abroad at this point in my life, living in South Korea, and I just remember doing lesson plans for class later on in the day, and I needed like something that I could relax and listen to, and I put on my headphones to not terrify everyone else in the room, but I must have listened to this is like 2 hours long. It's a 3 LP, and it was just, it's gorgeous black metal with a funeral doom pacing to it. Like I said, 3 LP, and there's moments like these really sparse piano sort of interludes that will bring you in and out of a song. The pacing is so slow that it's sort of even difficult to call it a black metal record at times. But you hear that sort of like buried, harsh, sort of vocal work. So in that sense, it lets you know that it has, it's informed by black metal. But the album cover here, this isn't your typical like kind of landscape, outdoor solitude black metal, and it's not or it's speaking to like a satanic occult thing necessarily, or not explicitly in the same way. It's far more meditative, and you kind of have to sit down with it for long periods of time and just let it sort of wash over you. And I think that's a little bit unique, right? Because sometimes, a record can grab you instantaneously. This does, but it does so with an incredible amount of sort of subtlety. Every small little fragment is well placed, and you get sort of like that slow sink going on here. It just pulls you in, and you never really feel threatened by this as much as you sort of succumb to its sort of seduction, if you will. So, an awesome record. It's definitely a sit down and take your time with it. But, you could throw this on and go about your day in the background or whatever. Trying to stay, don't want to go lose my voice here, but absolutely unique. I don't know like another black metal band that pulls this off this well. It's hard to inhabit that much space sonically, and this is I believe a one-man project does it incredibly well. Just these crazy atmospherics. I love this record. I know I've played it before once, but there's no way I was gonna walk away from this. So, not talking about how influential it was over the past decade for me. So, Elysian Blaze, Blood Geometry. If you can buy this on vinyl, I think, in my opinion, it's the way to listen to this. You're probably gonna, if you put it in your car on a CD, you're gonna crash and just because it's gonna put you to sleep, or you'll lose consciousness, whatever. This is much more you sit down and drink this slow, for sure. So good. Okay. Changing Paces. Internal Rot, Mental Hygiene, 2014. This came out originally on 625 Thrash and Crucificados. But man, if anyone this past year was exposed to Internal Rot, like, there's a reason. This is, I mean, one of the best grind bands going on right now, and I listened to a whole lot of grind in the decade prior, from 2000 to 2010. A good portion of my introduction of extreme metal, in particular, came through grindcore, and so when I listened to this kind of metal, this kind of grindcore, it makes me feel a little bit nostalgic to who I was in my late teens and early 20s. And so there's not a whole lot of this kind of grind that I listened to from the previous decade, but out of the ones that I did listen to, Internal Rot's got to be on that list. Like, they are one of the best grind bands going right now out of Australia. They share members with, Faceless Burial, and I believe there's some other, I don't know what it's, Brain Oil, or but other cool Australian metal projects. Anyway, awesome stuff. If you don't know Internal Rot, I mean, at this point, I think most people are exposed to them, but this is a 2014 release, and was my first experience with them. I think their past album, which I also had, their 2020 album, which I picked up as well, built like a whole lot of, they had built a whole lot of goodwill and interest based on Mental Hygiene, and it showed. I think I saw it on a whole bunch of people, had placed it as like a top 10 of 2020 sort of deal. So if you dig that, you will definitely love this. It's everything that there's no pitch shifting vocals here. It's just a tremendous high-low vocal performance. Great sort of violent punk-inspired grindcore. Amazing stuff. If this gets quiet over here, trust me, it's not over. It's just like how mellow this black metal listen is. So I will flip the record if we need to, but here we go. Okay, anyway, 2014, Internal Rot, Mental Hygiene. Okay. Genocide Shrines. Let me try that again. Genocide Shrines. Another one where I feel like may put me apart from some of the a good amount of it, of the YouTube community that I pay attention to, because I don't know if this falls under like a bestial or war metal category for them, and it somehow disqualifies itself for interest, just because it's like so aggressive that it loses a lot of the hooks that I think some metalheads love. But for me, yes, it walks that like impiety, abhorror. You know, another one that probably should come across your radar is like Tetragrammaticide from India. Just how explicit the religious aspect is. And they're from Sri Lanka. And this is titled, once again, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, Manipura Imperial Death Evocaville. You know, I hate having to read some of these like old English. I don't know if that's a U or a Death Evocaville. You would think I would know, but very long title to this one. That's just the first part. Getting back to the lecture at hand, there was a whole lot of conversation. I think this is 2015 when this came out. Originally on Volta Dried Bones, and Cyclopean Eye was another distro that I'd sort of come across. I'd been listening to enough extreme metal, but was kind of exhausted with a lot of the blasphemy kind of, or even Conqueror. I mean, that's a different animal to me. This sounds so much more rooted in death metal, but you have a very articulate sort of religious or anti-religious vision here. Coming from Sri Lanka, I think they did a good job sort of bringing a sense of cultural conversation to a genre that, I mean, it's not like you're looking at Hinduism and Buddhism and those influences. They've been previously established going back to like Beheri, but the kind of like nihilistic Armageddon sort of militant framework that informs war metal, if you will, they did a good job sort of bringing a religious angle to that kind of violence. And you know, sonically, just for me, like, that has enough roots. Most of my favorite bands that are operating in this space have enough death metal influence to make the songs memorable or recognizable. Outside of that, I'm more likely going to find something that's pure sonic horror that shares more with power electronics, but that's a different animal. Okay, let me flip the record. Be right back. Okay, there we go. Come back at you. So, in that sense, there's enough death metal here to keep me happy. And worth my time. It also brought a whole lot more interest for me personally into a world of, if you will, death black metal, and created a greater sense of appreciation and vocabulary in terms of qualifying what kind of what expectations or standards I had for this kind of music. Outside of, yes, I get it's extreme, but I need more than that. And in that sense, I had an appreciation for this record, and I still will return to it as like a landmark war metal, or black metal with like death metal influences, or whatever you want to call it. That intersection here, they do incredibly well, and I think out of all the bands that end up being sort of forgettable and don't have anything new to offer, this was such a specific and articulate contribution to the genre that over the past decade has been like a standard bearer for death black metal, if you will. Any bands that are playing in this space, this is what I will throw up and say, like, does it meet this standard? If I want to pick it up on vinyl, if I want to purchase it and continue to go back to it, Genocide Shrines is, for me, one of the best modern bands doing this sound. So, 2015, this vinyl release came out on Iron Bonehead later. but Manipura Imperial Death Evil Keeble. There we go. I think I got it right. All right, moving on. Speaking of bands that could potentially set me apart, Howls of EV. How do we feel about this? Because I love it. Curse's Impasse, the Pandlomic Vows. What a unique band. Came out of the Kansas City death metal scene. So, you know, they were like hanging out with Order from Chaos, you know, in the mid-90s, moved to California, and this is an Voidhanger project, I think, that got picked up as well by Nuclear War Now. I think that's sort of the history there in terms of labels. This is a Nuclear War Now press. Just from the artwork to the sound here, it's like surrealistic death metal. That's the best way, like, if Salvador Dali was doing death metal, it would sound like Howls of EV. Everything is just like, you took, you know, or expressionist like themes and all sort of fragmented notions of what make up death metal. You took them apart, threw them across the floor, you know, someone became like poisoned, confused, and lost in their intoxication and was asked to sort of put the pieces back together. It would sound like this. It's that kind of fragmented. No one else sounded like this, and I think they kind of got grouped in with like the atmospheric death metal stuff or the avant-garde death metal stuff, but it was just so weird, and I love it. Everything is just like, the drums does not sound how you expect them to sound, and for some reason, like it'll, you know, gets grouped into potentially like a atmospheric death metal or black metal with death metal influences, because of its odd nature. But I thought it was such a unique and artistic vision for what death metal could be. And it arrives here in 2016, and I think this is the last release by the project. Just wild ideas, and it could definitely be alienating to a lot of traditional death metal fans. And if you think about this coming around the same year that like Blood Incantation Star Spawn does, it was like the last hope for someone, you know, in the time where like, was death metal going to be something that was exploring new territory? And I think that ultimately people became hungry for an older kind of aesthetic. And I don't want to call like the old school death metal like, maybe to call it regressive would maybe be too harsh, but this was like the precipice. Like death metal fell off a cliff, not because it had been pushed to extremes necessarily, but because it sort of was potentially losing a sense of identity. And this is such like a flashpoint for me when I think back on the past decade as to how odd and weird death metal was trying to, not a sense, like, deliberately trying to exploit artistic territory, but like the community was, to some degree, like, this kind of death metal community was asking questions about what the future of the genre could potentially become. And this project did such a great job asking those questions. You know, and to some degree, I would lump it in with, like, Human Remains. You know, Human Remains for me is one of those bands that, at a much earlier time, was playing a very odd, and I don't ever think ever really executed or understood themselves well enough. But if you look at, like, what they spawned, you know, all the weird technical grindcore bands and death metal bands that came in the decades afterwards, like, you could point back to, you know, something like Discordance Axis could listen to, you know, Human Remains in my head and be like, okay, they were opening a door. They never were able to realize it, but they were sort of gave us a route to explore sonically. And I think Howls of EV, I think deserves to be mentioned in that same kind of context. I don't know if they will ever catch on and fully articulate a vision that is able to walk those lines between a comfortable death metal listen for bands who love a little bit more of that traditional structure and sonic quality, and also speak to their sort of experimental vision about potentiality within the genre. But my God, I love this band. Such a unique project, and one that is associated, I think, with their era, and is in a lot of ways sort of, in my eyes, like a unique glimpse into what death metal has potential for. So, and I mean that in a complimentary way. I love this record. So, Howls of EV 2016, Curses Impasse. Awesome stuff. Evokin. Hypnagogia. There we go. Okay, so 2018, this is a Profound Lore release, Funeral Doom. You know, bands, members who would come from more extreme Death Doom projects in the Northeast. And this is a concept record based on, to my knowledge, World War I. And also this, like, because, you know, like I talked about previously, get some more to drink, hold on. Like I talked about previously, like I came from, I was not listening to a lot of traditional heavy metal, and early on in my sort of metal journey, if you will. So everything sort of came from extreme grindcore, and the death metal that I was listening to that had doom tendencies. I still have a difficult time with a lot of like the death doom that has a gothic slant to it. So, you know, My Dying Bride and Catatonia and Paradise Lost, I've always kind of had an interesting relationship with and never truly loved. Evokin on this record does enough to connect like a broader emotional vocabulary that I think to some degree those records were able to cultivate, like those early, you know, Peaceville records were able to cultivate, but didn't necessarily, you know, work for me. This record, those emotions, that like sonic palette finds a home. This is a really sad record at times, and it's got great sort of additional complementing like strings and keys and so forth. It's a level of like nuance and precision that I've come to appreciate within a funeral doom or death doom context, but it took me some time to get here, and Evoken on this record did a tremendous job articulating those for me. So much fun to listen to, a very sad funeral doom record, but and a great example of in terms of like how your tastes in metal can change in time. I find myself far more interested in less extreme versions of death metal, or metal in general, I should say. There's a whole lot more traditional metal records that I'm listening to now that potentially when I was in my early to mid 20s I would have no time for, but I'm closer to 40 now than I am 30, and whatever. I don't know if it's just like I'm able to pull back on what was initially attractive about that extreme, like that has been exhausted, and I'm more interested in different aspects of this music. But this is beautiful and sorrowful and incredibly well matured. Just a tremendous funeral doom record that also I would say is not as expansive, meaning like I think they do a good job sort of reining in things, and you never get a lot of big sort of empty or space that is not capitalized on. They make use of how much territory they're able to navigate, and everything seems incredibly well fleshed out and well composed. Phenomenal funeral doom record. Super cool. If you have not heard, I think most people know Evoken. They're probably one of the bigger funeral doom record bands out right now. I love this record. Hypnagogia from Evoken 2018. Vengeance, the Night Lord. So 2019 here. Italian trad band. So they kind of play an interesting blend of like epic metal with some other traditional sort of like, I don't know, if you were to bring Fate's Warning, Manila Road, and Wasp together, it would sound like this. Look at these gents. And when I heard this record, I kept on, like, it's like Sirith Ungol with the vocals, you kind of, is a little bit odd. Like, the vocalist here sounds buried, like you're waiting for him to step up to the microphone. But it doesn't matter because the guitar work, the lead guitar work specifically, is just bananas. Like, I have had more time enjoying the lead guitar work on this record than anything I've heard in the past handful of years. Like, I'm just here for, like, to say that the solos are the only thing interesting about this record is absolutely false. And like Fate's Warning, there are things that you can listen to and pick up on every single time you play it through. Like, it has enough subtlety to it, or where you're like, oh, I didn't notice that riff, or like, there's something to appreciate here as the records continually, you play through them over the years. Like, this isn't from 2019 and has a lot to offer, but the lead guitar work, it's like what made Mark Shelton's lead playing, when I listen to like the initial solo on The Deluge, the first one that comes into the on the title track, there's like narrative arc to their solo work. It's like, it's not just in epic heavy metal, or what makes in general a great soloist memorable and unique and special, and why you clamor for those moments in the course of a song, is because they have all the same sort of characteristics and dynamics that great songs do. It's all embedded within the solo. They have, you know, these peaks and, you know, valleys. There's a sense of tension and release. Everything that great songwriting has, great solo work does too. And Mark Shelton knew that, he was not like in a decade of the 1980s that provided tons of tremendous shredders. He was not that person, but he was a tremendous soloist because he understood sort of how to build and release a solo that would make it memorable and had sort of a relationship to the song. Vulture's Vengeance has that as well. It's one of my favorite traditional heavy metal record of 2019. One of my favorites of the year. Outside of this Megaton Sword that I cannot stop listening to from 2020, The Night Lore from Vulture's Vengeance is another one that I would like. You have to listen to this. This is one of the best bands doing it right now within the trad scene. Please, you know, check them out. 2019, Vulture's Vengeance, The Night Lore. That's going to do it for me. I want to say, I think I may do a video on honorable mentions, but I've done 2 videos today and I'm exhausted. It's not a bit lightheaded from all this talking by myself, so thank you so much for watching. It was a lot of fun to do this. I kind of ran downstairs and was able to put together ideas for a video pretty quickly, just because of all the experience I had. Please, if you have, you know, you're out there and you want to comment on some of the, you know, records I listed, or put a response video out there. This is sort of unprompted or unsolicited or whatever, but a really cool topic, and outside of doing a collection update, you know, this was sort of like I could just walk downstairs and grab some stuff and put it on and talk about it for you guys. So thanks so much for watching. If you have not checked my part 1 video, please do so. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.